Hey, what's going on, guys? My name's Chad. Welcome back to another Salt and Pauper video. Today we're going to continue the deep dive into breaking the meta with a look at the Mardu synthesizer list that's been taken over Pauper Ladder. Let's take a look. Alright, kicking off Mardu Synthesizer, let's go over the land base real quick. We start off with 2 Boros Garrisons, the red-white bounce land. We have 2 Drossforge Bridges, which is the red-black indestructible artifact land. 2 Goldmire Bridges, which is the white-black artifact indestructible land. 3 mountains, 4 plains, 1 Radiant Fountain. This is just so we have a little bit of life gain in the main deck to go along with that core Skyfisher for value in case we don't hit a Navigator's Compass early enough. And then 4 Rustvale Bridges. This is the main color combination of the deck, so we want a full 4 of the red-white artifact indestructible lands, and a Singleton Swamp to combo with our Cleansing Wildfires for mana fixing. We have 3 Navigator's Compasses. This serves a dual purpose in this deck. It's going to give us 3 life when it enters the battlefield. This is a 1-mana artifact, so it's going to work with Skyfisher as well as our Glinthawks. It's also going to be an artifact we can sacrifice to our Deadly Disputes, as well as a cheap spell to play off of Synthesizer, and an artifact which counts for our Galv Blasts. This deck is oriented on a lot of synergy, so a lot of things are going to play into each other. We also have a Singleton Omen of the Dead, which is a 1-piece enchantment that has flash, and it returns target creature from your graveyard to your hand, and then you can also sacrifice it to scry. This is mainly in there to combo with the core Skyfisher, i.e. you flash it in, you get a Skyfisher back to your hand, you play the Skyfisher, you bounce the Omen, you play the Omen, you get another Skyfisher, and you continue that loop ending with Omen in your hand. Makes you never run out of creatures as long as they don't have graveyard interaction or counterspells. You have a 4 Experimental Synthesizer. This is the card that makes the deck run. It's part of the name. It is core. It's also an artifact for all of the additional artifact synergies in the deck, as well as pseudo card draw, and helps you run really deep. It's really important to this deck for the value game plan where you want to out-card your opponent. We have 4 Ichor Wellsprings, which is an artifact. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card. When it goes to the graveyard, draw a card. This is going to work with those Deadly Disputes, of course, but it's also another card you can bounce with Glinthawk or Skyfisher for additional card value. It's also an artifact you can sacrifice to Makeshift Munitions for additional value. Lots and lots of synergies. We have a Singleton Destroy Evil in the main board. If you watched my Dominaria United set review, you'll notice that we tagged this as one of the white all-stars, and it's coming into play here. This card really does everything you want it to do. It destroys Enforcer, it destroys Tolarian Terror, it destroys Gurmag Angler. Hits basically everything. Also can hit in enchantment, and really just gives you kind of a catch-all. Journey to Nowhere at a 3 of slot gives you your other removal option in the deck. 4 of Core Skyfisher, which is the 2/3 that enters the battlefield, bounces a permanent. That's going to combo with pretty much everything in the deck. You have 3 Chainer's Edicts, which is going to be your main Tolarian Terror interaction. This being a 3 of with flashback for 7 means that you effectively have 6 copies if you ramp effectively, and it's really going to shore up that matchup. 3 Deadly Disputes gives you some additional value out of your creatures. They are small. They're going to draw some bolts, some interaction. This gives you an additional way to gain card advantage, as well as cashing in with those Ichor Wellsprings. And some level of mana fixing on the treasure tokens, although Navigator's Compass does serve that dual purpose of being able to fix your mana at the same time. We have 4 Cleansing Wildfires. This is another mana fixer, as well as a card advantage engine from the deck. You're going to target your bridges, which are indestructible and cannot be destroyed, and then it lets you search for a basic, put it into play tapped, and draw a card on top of it, so it is rampant growth with card draw stapled on. This also can be pointed at your opponent's lands if they're on something like Tron, if they're on something like Rug Ponza, where they're committing a bunch of enchantments to a land. This can go into the domain matchup to stop them from playing Nylea's Presence on key lands to keep them off domain. Whatever you need, this card does. 2 Makeshift Munitions. This is going to be the main reach engine of the deck. It gives you a little bit of late game value, as well as turns your core Skyfisher Omen of the Dead loop into a little bit of inevitability, as you never run into a shortage of creatures to sacrifice in the late game once you have an abundance of mana. We round this up with a Singleton Suffocating Fumes. This serves the purpose of pretty much the catch-all. Really good against elves, really good against cats from Coggate, really good against birds from the white, red, or Boros Bully decks, playing Battle Screech, things like that. Also has cycling, so if it's in a matchup where it's irrelevant, you can just ditch it to swap it out for another card. Moving into the sideboard, we have a Singleton's Navigator Compass. We have 2 Nihil Spellbombs, 2 Light of Hope, 2 Gorilla Shaman, starts your Artifact Hate package, an extra Destroy Evil in case you need it, 4 Revoke Existences, 2 Weather the Storms, and an extra Suffocating Fumes for those matchups when it is good. Now, you might see this Weather the Storm and wonder how you cast it, considering there's no Forest in the deck. However, you do have those treasure tokens from the Deadly Disputes, but you also have Navigator's Compass. And remember, I said it served the dual purpose of fixing your mana and gaining new life. Being able to tap until end of turn, target land becomes another type of your choice, is quite powerful as a fixing engine in this deck and will help you. So keep an eye on that interaction. Be aware of it. It can be very, very valuable. In terms of what this deck is very good against, this deck is great with interaction. It has a ton of main deck interaction. It's going to be able to kill pretty much anything that you put down in front of it and take the game long. It does have a little bit of a slow start with that mana base. You're almost always going to start turn 1 on tap land. Sometimes you're going to follow it on turn 2 with a tap land or a bounce land and lose a lot of tempo, but you use the Cleansing Wildfires to catch up. If you're looking to punish this deck, you can definitely punish a Stumbled Draw on a couple of early tap lands or a bounce land. If you have land destruction to hit that bounce land, you're going to be miles ahead. On top of that, you'll notice that outside of burn spells and some makeshift munitions, the deck does lack a little bit of pressure from creatures. Now, it does have those 4 Glinthawks and 4 Skyfishers, and with the Omen of the Dead, you can loop those Skyfishers. Aside from that, it only has 8 main deck bodies. Keep in mind, you absolutely can fight this deck in the air. You can fight it on creatures. If you have the counter magic or graveyard hate to interrupt this Omen of the Dead loop, or even if you have enchantment removal, say, cough, cough, destroy evil, you can stop the loop indefinitely and starve them out. If they run out of creatures, they rely on makeshift munitions to finish the game, which means that any amount of life gain or pressure outside of that will win you the game against this deck. As far as targeting, this deck is very, very good against creature decks as well as things that are slow. It's very good at generating value in the late game and out-card drawing your opponent as it takes the game long. So, this deck is going to prey on things like Coggate. It is very good against the Tolarian Terror matchup as it has those main deck Chainer's Edicts as well as a great amount of removal to deal with your Gurmag Anglers, to deal with your Terrors that do slip through those Chainers. You've got Journey to Nowheres, and you can absolutely just run them out of threats and win the game long. As far as weaknesses, like I said, outside of interrupting Omen of the Dead and stopping that creature base, you can absolutely fight them on land. You can also fight them on win conditions. This deck does win through damage, so obviously life gain is going to be very, very important. You can get yourself out of reach. If you can stick a Sacred Cat in the Coggate matchup and hit with a meaningfully powerful creature, and they don't have a makeshift munitions to sack the creature to deny you the life gain, you can absolutely get out of range of this deck. Keep in mind, they have to sacrifice artifacts or creatures to that makeshift munitions, so they can run out of ammo, especially if you interrupt the Skyfish or Omen of the Dead loop. So be aware of your interaction points for this matchup. This deck is very, very heavily tuned into affinity. You'll notice the Gorilla Shamans and Revoke Exist take 6 main deck slots, as well as the 2 Nihil Spell Bombs can come in to target Tolarian Terror, Affinity, Turbo Fog, a number of graveyard interactions in this format, so it's got a lot of game plans against those as well. This deck is very well positioned right now. It's no surprise it's doing well in the challenges. However, like I said, if you're going to be playing into it, if you need to be prepping for this matchup in Vegas or this matchup in this coming challenge, be aware that you can kill all their creatures, and if you have any amount of interaction on the stack or any amount of enchantment removal, you can target that Singleton Omen of the Dead, get that out of there, and they immediately run out of pressure outside of burn spells. So just mind your life total. You'll win. After a while, they'll run out of gas. Other angles, this deck is very mana hungry. It wants to hit its land drops. It wants to be able to cast lots and lots of spells each turn and go really deep with the experimental synthesizer, Glinthawk, Skyfisher lines. So limiting its mana drops is going to cost this deck a lot of pressure. Targeting its mana base, targeting its bounce lands, and its early creatures. If you have your own exiles like Revoke Existence or Dust to Dust, being able to hit this mana base is going to cost this deck a lot. That pretty much rounds up the target and interaction spots for Mardu Synthesizers matchup. Hopefully this has demonstrated the strengths, weaknesses, and game plan of the deck so that you understand it and can be better prepared into it as you go forward. As usual, guys, appreciate you watching the video this far. If you've made it this far, please consider subscribing. It really does help the channel out. Make sure you drop a comment below and like the video for the algorithm. Good luck in your leagues. I hope to see any of you in Vegas. Anybody who's going to be in Vegas for the weekend, feel free to hit me up on Twitter and Instagram. Let's meet up. Let's do some cubes. And I've got some sweet tokens to give out all weekend. Thank you again so much, guys. Appreciate you. Goodbye forever. I'll see you next week. Peace.